The Sacred Timeline is the original MCU, the universe that started with Tony Stark back in 2008 and where all the main Avengers movies happen. It was originally labeled as Earth 199999, but now it's being called Earth 616, just like the Prime Universe in the comics. It's called the Sacred Timeline because it's the timeline that He Who Remains, the guy that was running the TVA, wanted to protect, because he didn't want any branching timelines that could lead to the creation of other versions of himself. But the name also works as a metaphor. It's sacred because it's the main universe in this entire fictional multiverse. Now this universe actually has multiple branch timelines that mirror the original, with just a few key differences caused by either time travel or Nexus events. The main ones are probably the timelines created in Endgame, when the Avengers went on their mission to retrieve the Infinity Stones from other timelines. The confusing part is that we don't know how many timelines they actually created, because the rules are kinda vague, and the new timeline is only formed if the changes are big enough, and since Cap supposedly returned the stones to their original places, we don't really know how much damage they actually caused. There are a few though that we are pretty sure they are real. One is the one where Loki escapes from New York using the Tesseract. That timeline is the timeline that the Loki from the TV show comes from. Another is the one where Thanos, Gamora, and Nebula leave their timeline and never go back. That's definitely big enough to split off a new timeline. And one where Steve Rogers marries Peggy, maybe. Of course, there are a ton of other timelines from this universe that we explore in Marvel What If, but I'm going to go over them later, because I prefer to go first over the universes that will actually matter for the movies coming in the near future. That way, our friends with low attention span can get the most of this video. The Fox universe, also known as Earth 10005, is the universe where all the original X-Men movies made by Fox take place. It started with the X-Men movie in the year 2000 and ended with the New Mutants back in 2020. This universe is especially important now because we suspect it's about to collide with the MCU's Sacred Timeline in the next Avengers movie. That kind of collision is called an incursion, a catastrophic multiversal event where two universes crash into each other, usually at their Earths, threatening to destroy both. In Deadpool and Wolverine, we find out that the Fox universe was already on the verge of death, with the passing of Logan, who was its anchor being. An anchor being is basically someone who holds the universe together, keeping it stable. That's the in-universe explanation. But there is also a meta layer to this. When a character says universe in the MCU, it can sometimes be a metaphor for a movie franchise. So that makes the anchor being the main character of that franchise, or at least the most important one, the one holding the whole thing up. By the end of Deadpool and Wolverine, this universe gets somehow mysteriously saved. Even the TVA has no idea how, but since Deadpool is clearly becoming the new face of that franchise, we suspect he might have replaced Logan as the new anchor being, because that fits the metaphor of the main character being the anchor being. But again, this is all speculation. We don't really know what the real reason is for why this universe was restored. Like the main universe, this one also has branches, where events play out differently. We see some of them when Deadpool is jumping through timelines looking for a Wolverine to replace the one from his own. But the only one that really matters is the one he actually chooses at the end, the Wolverine that ends up teaming with Deadpool in the movie. That Logan comes from a universe we are calling the Mutant Genocide universe. In this version, Logan was out drinking when humans, driven by fear and hatred, launched an attack on the X-Mansion, massacring all the mutants inside. Logan blamed himself, snapped, and went on a violent rampage, killing innocent people. After that, the X-Men were seen as dangerous, and Logan became an outcast. Depressed and angry, he kept drinking and wore his suit under his clothes as a reminder of everything he lost. It's also mentioned that unlike the main Fox universe, this one actually has an Avengers team existing alongside the X-Men, but we don't really know anything about them yet. Another X-Men universe that I want to mention, because it will most likely be important for future stories, is the one we see at the end of the Marvels. After Monica Rambeau sealed the tear in the fabric of space-time to save Earth, she got trapped in the exposed universe on the other side, and she lands in a new universe featuring a new CGI beast, which implies that an X-Men team exists there, alongside with her mother, Maria Rambeau, who appears as binary. That might mean this universe also has a different version of the Avengers. It feels like this universe will play a big role going forward, but for now, we don't know much about it. We do have some theories though, and I'll get into those later in the video. The Void, or the End of Time, isn't really a universe. It's a place that exists at the very edge of the MCU's multiverse. A metaphysical junkyard located at the end of time, where the TVA sends everything and everyone they prune. Once again, Marvel uses the Void as a metaphor. It's basically where characters from cancelled franchises end up. That's why we see the Human Torch from Earth 12-1698. That's the universe of the original 2004 Fantastic Four movies. Elektra from Earth 70-13-06, the one from the old Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. And even Wesley Snipes' Blade from Earth 26-32-0. But at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool asks the TVA to do him a favor, to help his friends. Which might mean that their universes are now somehow being restored, and could now be part of the MCU. There is also a moment that implies that some characters might actually be born in the Void. Like the Gambit, who unlike the others, he says that he has no memory of any life before the Void. And that's another metaphor, because there were plans for a Gambit movie starring Channing Tatum, but the movie never happened. So in the meta-narrative, that version of the Gambit never had a universe to begin with, and ended up in the Void because his world never even started. And if the TVA's favor to Deadpool includes the Gambit, that could mean a new Gambit universe is being created. Especially with the rumors going around that Marvel is considering reviving the Solo film after the character's success. The Void is also full of different versions of familiar characters, ones that were banished by the TVA and dumped there. The TVA sends them to the Void to get rid of them, hoping that Alioth, a giant trans-temporal entity that guards the Void, will devour them and erase them for good. The Sonyverse, or the Sony Spider-Man universe, also known as Earth 688, is, as the name suggests, the universe where all the Sony movies featuring Spider-Man villains take place. It officially became part of the MCU after Venom made an appearance in Spider-Man No Way Home. Now this universe is kind of a mess, with a bunch of terrible movies and confusing crossovers with the main universe that never get explained. Pretty much everything that isn't Venom in this universe has failed miserably. Recently, Sony cancelled most of the upcoming movies planned for this universe, with the only survivor being Spider-Noir, which is still scheduled for 2026. All those cancellations led fans to believe that this universe is about to be officially scrapped, but I'm pretty positive we're gonna see this universe again. Maybe we'll start seeing its characters show up in the Void after their universe gets cancelled. That would actually make a lot of sense. And also, let's be real, with how popular Sony's Venom is, I don't see a world where Marvel and Sony don't eventually have him face off against a Spider-Man. So yeah, we'll definitely be hearing from this universe again. And speaking of Spider-Man, let me now tell you about all the Spider-Man universes the MCU has featured. First, we have the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, also known as Earth 96283. This is the universe where the original Spider-Man trilogy, starring Tobey Maguire, takes place. And it officially became part of the MCU's multiverse in No Way Home. This version of Spider-Man is older and more experienced, and he's unique among the others for having organic webbing, meaning he doesn't need web shooters like the others do. He's more mature, a little wiser, and kind of worked as a mentor for main universe Spider-Man in No Way Home. The Amazing Spider-Man universe. This is the universe of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, which also joined the MCU's multiverse in No Way Home. What defines this Spider-Man is grief. After the tragic death of Gwen Stacy, he was consumed by rage and guilt, which led him down a darker path during his time as a vigilante. He's probably the most emotionally intense Spider-Man of the bunch. At one point, there were rumors that this Spider-Man would become the official version of the Sonyverse, but with that universe falling apart now, that's probably never going to happen. Still, I'm pretty confident we haven't seen the last of either Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. There is a very good chance we'll see both of them return for one last big crossover event. The Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man universe. This is the universe where the events of the new MCU animated Spider-Man show take place. Originally, the series was meant to serve as an origin story for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but eventually it evolved into its own separate universe, one we're now calling Earth TRN 1450. In this timeline, Spider-Man is still in high school and he's just been bitten by a spider that comes from another reality. One of the biggest differences in this version is that Norman Osborn becomes Peter's mentor almost immediately after he gets his powers, which is very different from what we've seen in other versions. We also see the events of the Avengers Civil War take place in this universe, but without Spider-Man being involved, which means that this reality is very similar to the main MCU timeline. Sony's animated Spider-Verse. This is the universe of Miles Morales, specifically the one from Earth 1610B, where the Spider-Verse animated films take place. Right now, there is no official confirmation that this universe is part of the MCU. However, those movies did feature cameos of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. And since both of them are now confirmed to be part of the MCU's multiverse, this could mean that Sony's Spider-Verse is connected too. Of course, this is just a theory, but if that turns out to be true, it would mean that every Spider-Man universe featured in Across the Spider-Verse and Beyond the Spider-Verse is technically part of the MCU's multiverse now. But there is no way in hell I'm going to go over all of them in this video because I don't want it to be 10 hours long. Now, I'm going to go over the universes we see in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, starting with Earth 617. This is the universe where the Fender Strange comes from, the version of Doctor Strange we see in the beginning of the film, trying to help America Chavez escape a multiversal threat. They are pulled into Earth 616 by America's powers, and Defender Strange dies. Later in the movie, the main Doctor Strange uses his corpse to dreamwalk during the final battle. At first, I wasn't planning to include this universe in this video because it seemed like just another throwaway universe that we would never hear about again. But then I noticed that Marvel officially named it Earth 617, just one number away from Earth 616, the main MCU timeline. This detail made me reconsider. The numbering could suggest that Earth 617 is very closely connected to the main universe and might become more important later. One theory I came across suggests that Earth 617 could be the same universe we see in the Marvel's post-credit scene, the one where Monica Rambeau ends up, meeting characters like Beast and Binary. In that scene, she's said to be trapped in an exposed universe on the other side, and since the name Earth 617 is so close to 616, the idea is that it could be the neighboring universe. It's probably not the case, but I thought it's a cool idea. Earth 838 is the universe where Strange formed the Illuminati, a group willing to make tough decisions to protect their world. The team included Professor X, Mr. Fantastic, Captain Carter, Captain Marvel, and Black Bolt. Just like in the main universe, Thanos tried to wipe out half of life in the galaxy to bring balance. So the Illuminati united to try to stop him. But Strange arrogantly tried to find the shortcut. He turned to the Darkhold, an ancient and powerful book filled with dark magic, and used it to dreamwalk into another universe looking for a way to beat Thanos. However, Strange's decision ended up causing an incursion between this Illuminati-assembled universe and another, resulting in the other being destroyed. The rest of the Illuminati eventually found the Book of Ashanti and used it to defeat Thanos, but afterward, Strange confessed. He admitted to destroying a whole universe. He renounced the Darkhold, but the damage was done. So with his consent, Black Bolt executed him on the orders of the other Illuminati. It was a painful decision, but they believed it was necessary. To honor him, they built a Strange museum, and kept the truth behind his death a secret. After the events of Multiverse of Madness, all the Illuminati members we saw in this universe were presumably killed by Wanda. But Earth 838 is still one of the most stacked universes we've seen, with an Avengers team, the Fantastic Four, Inhumans, X-Men, all in one place. That means there are plenty of characters from that world we haven't met yet. It also features a version of Wanda who's good and whose kids actually exist in that reality. So there is a real chance we'll return to this universe again in the future. The Variant Killer Strange universe. In this universe, Strange attended Christine Palmer's wedding, and during the ceremony, she asked him if he was happy. Strange said he was, but when he returned to the Sanctum Sanctorum, he realized he had lied. He wasn't happy at all. Desperate to be with Christine, he turned to the Darkhold. He started learning forbidden spells and began dream-walking into alternate version of himself, searching for a reality where he could be with her. But the dream walking came with a cost. Over time, it corrupted him. This version of Strange became known as Sinister Strange, and he began killing his variants across the multiverse. His obsession eventually triggered an incursion, and another universe collided with his own, wiping out everyone except him. So he ended up living alone in a ruined world of his own making. Sinister Strange eventually died during the events of Multiverse of Madness in a battle with the original Strange. Utopian Parallel. The Utopian Parallel isn't actually a universe. It's a dimension that exists outside of time and outside of the multiverse. And it's the birthplace of America Chavez, who's so far the only known character in the MCU capable of naturally traveling between universes. We don't know much yet about the MCU's version of the Utopian Parallel, but in the comics, this dimension was later retconned to be a product of America's imagination, something she created to cope with the trauma. However, it's unclear whether the MCU will follow the same direction or treat it as a real existing dimension. Earth 828 is the newest universe introduced in the MCU, and it's the one where the events of Fantastic Four First Steps take place. Now, as I'm recording this video, the movie hasn't came out yet, but by the time you're watching it, it probably has. Still, even without seeing it, we already know a few things. This universe is most likely set in the 1960s, and it features a brand new version of the Fantastic Four, a team that will have to face off against Galactus. And thanks to the post-credit scene in Thunderbolts, we also know that this team will end up traveling to Earth 616, the main MCU timeline. So there is a good chance that something bad is going to happen to their own universe, either during or at the end of the movie. Earth 92131 is the universe of the original X-Men animated series and the recent sequel, X-Men 97. It was officially confirmed to be part of the MCU's multiverse after X-Men 97 was released. It's been also confirmed that this is the same universe where Spider-Man, the animated series, takes place, and that a version of the Avengers exists in this world too. What makes this universe special is that it's the MCU universe that feels the most like the Prime universe from the comics. One theory I really love about this universe is that it could be the one Monica Rambeau ended up in during the post-credit scene of the Marvels. That would be such a cool twist, but I know it's probably never happening. Now let's finally go over the universes/timelines we see in Marvel What If series. To be honest, I really doubt most of these universes will have a major impact in the overall MCU story, but there is a small chance we'll get some cameos, and for that reason, I'm gonna go over all of them as quickly as possible and point out the characters I think have the most potential to cross over into the main universe. So, we've got a universe where Peggy Carter becomes the super soldier instead of Steve Rogers, and he ends up in a retro Iron Man suit. This version of Captain Carter is basically the face of the What If series, and she definitely has the highest chance of showing up again in the main story. Then, there is a universe where T'Challa becomes Star-Lord instead of Peter Quill, and he reforms the Ravengers into a force for good, even becoming friends with Thanos. A universe where the Avengers get assassinated by Hank Pym as a part of a revenge plan for his daughter's death. The Supreme Strange universe, where a corrupted version of Doctor Strange destroys his own reality while trying to bring Christine Palmer back from the dead. Then there is the Marvel Zombies universe, where a quantum virus infects the world and even the Avengers get turned. This one is especially important because it's getting its own spin-off show. A universe where Thor never had Loki as a brother and he grew up to become a party-obsessed wildcard. The Killmonger War universe, where Killmonger manipulates both America and Wakanda into going to war after becoming king. A timeline where Ultron gets all the Infinity Stones and starts wiping out entire universes. A universe where young Peter Quill is raised by his father Ego, but eventually betrays him and returns to Earth because he misses home, and eventually he becomes one of the first Avengers. One where Happy Hogan becomes a version of the Hulk to stop Justin Hammer from destroying Avengers Tower. A universe where Tony Stark ends up stranded on Sakaar and teams up with Gamora to defeat Thanos. There is also one where Hela teams up with the Mandarin after Odin banishes her to Earth. Then there is the Kahori universe. This one is pretty unique. In this universe, the Tesseract falls to Earth during the destruction of Asgard, and it powers a lake in a Mohawk village. A young woman named Kahori falls into it and gains supernatural abilities, and she becomes an original Native American superhero and uses her powers to fight off the Spanish conquest. Kahori is an original superhero we see in What If, and she has a solid chance of showing up again in the main story. There is also a universe where the Avengers use mechas to fight kaiju monsters. One where the Red Guardian prevents the Winter Soldier from assassinating the Starks, and the two of them go on the run together. Eventually, Red Guardian is recruited by Bill Foster to become an Avenger. A timeline where Agatha becomes a Celestial, stealing powers from the Eternals. Then there is the universe where Howard the Duck and Darcy Lewis have a baby together, and it's a half human, half duck named Birdie. I know it sounds very absurd, but the show keeps saying that Birdie has a great destiny, so he might actually cameo in some future Marvel event. And finally, there is a universe where Riri Williams uses the remains of Vision to create an ultra-powerful suit to defeat Mysterio with it. Like I said, most of these universes probably won't have a big impact. But don't be surprised if one or two characters sneak their way into a future crossover. Personally, my bets are on Captain Carter, Kahori, and maybe Birdie or Supreme Strange showing up again. Those were all the relevant universes we went through during the 3 seasons of What If. Of course, there are other Marvel universes I didn't mention, like the ones we see in Loki and Quantumania, but I consider those as one-off universes that I believe we have really zero chance of seeing again in the future, and I wanted to focus on the important ones with a real chance to matter for the future of the MCU. If this video was helpful, consider subscribing. And if you are still confused about the MCU's multiverse after this video, consider watching the video on the screen where I explain how the MCU world works in a very simple way.